Today I'm going to show you how to make a 4-walled slab box with a base. What you're going to need is some thick paper, so tag board or poster board would work, and a ruler and a pencil. You're going to measure out your tag board, making sure to have nice right angles. And for my walls, the length is going to be 6 inches, the height will be 4.5 inches. So this is going to sit up on a base. To find the base of my slab box, I'm going to add an inch to the length. So I said before this is 6 inches, so I've created a 7 by 7 square. The reason I'm adding an inch to the length of the wall is that I need to take into account the width of the slab. Each slab is going to be about 1/4 inch thick, so that'll give you some extra leeway for your piece. So I've rolled out 4 large slabs on the slab roller. I'm going to use the biggest one as my base and the other ones for my walls. This one I can actually get 2 pieces out of for my walls. The first thing I need to do is align the particles. So I'm going to use a rib tool, and on each of the slabs I'm going to line up all the particles by pulling a damp rib tool across the slab. I'm going from left to right, and then I'm going to go from top to bottom. Then I'm going to flip the slab over. Make sure to carefully do this. I'm going to peel it away from the newspaper. You don't want to stretch your slab. If you're struggling to flip the slab, you can use another bat or board. Set it on top and just flip the slab from one board to another. Take the newspaper off. And because I flipped that slab from left to right, I'm now going to go from right to left on this side to make sure that I'm going in the same direction. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I flipped the piece of clay, so what was on the left before is now on the right. Using that damp rib tool to line up those particles from right to left, and then from top to bottom, because that didn't switch when I flipped it. This makes the slab stronger. You will have less cracking and warping when you create your box this way. So I'm going to do that to all of my slabs. I won't make you watch that, and then I'll show you how to cut them down and piece them together. Now that I've lined up the particles, I'm going to set my template on the clay, getting as close to the edge as I can so that there's not any wasted clay. And I'm going to use a fettling knife. You can also use a needle tool for this, but the fettling knife makes a nice clean edge. It's a little bit easier to use. So I'm going to set my fettling knife right next to the template, and I want to hold the template too so it doesn't slide, and just pull through the clay, making sure to keep that fettling tool nice and straight so that my cut is straight and not on an angle. Pull the excess away. Again, holding that fettling knife nice and straight. If you're careful when you're cutting out your slabs, it makes joining them together a lot easier. There, and we have one slab cut out. And I can do the same thing on this side. And I got a little bit away from the edge so I can come back through and cut a nice clean line there. And you can see the edges of my slabs are nice and straight right there. They're not cut on an angle. What you don't want to do is tilt your fettling knife like this. That will create kind of a beveled edge, and it makes it a lot harder to join to the base. So I'll continue cutting out the sides of the slab. I'll cut 2 more so that I have 4 sides. And then I'll work on my base. Now that I've cut out all of the slab walls, I have 4 sitting here. They're stacked up with newspaper in between each layer, and that's to prevent the slab walls from sticking together. So we can set those aside for now. And I'm going to move on to the base. My base is the largest slab that I've rolled. I said before that it has to be an inch larger than the length of the slab walls. So the length of the slab walls was 6 inches. And I want to make a base that's about 7 by 7. And that's an inch larger to account for the 1/4 inch thickness that each slab will have when you roll it through the slab roller. I know that would only make 6.5 inches, but we want to give it a little wiggle room in case you mess up. So I can cut this slab down, or I could just leave it as is, but it's kind of hard to work with it when it has so much extra clay. So we're going to cut it down to the 7 by 7. And you'll be trimming this down one more time after you have your 4 walls joined. There you go. So now I have a 7 by 7 square for my base. I'm going to write my name on this. It's also helpful to have your name on the piece of paper since my name is going to be flipped over and set on the underside. So I've written my name right here on the piece of newspaper. And this would be a great stopping point for the first day. You want to let your slabs dry out so that they're leather hard. You'll still need to wrap them up and put a bag over it, spray them down so that they don't dry out too much. Then when you come in the next day, you can blow dry them if they're not quite at leather hard yet. But I'm going to stop for a second to blow dry my slabs so I can move on to joining the walls. So I blow dried my slabs to make them leather hard. This slab was not blow dried. You can see how it easily curves. It's still wet. Whereas this slab, I can hold it up in my hand and it's still retaining its shape. So it's a little bit harder, but not too hard. It still is pliable. I can move it around. And I'm going to stack my slabs on my base vertically like this. But first I want to show you the strongest way to build the slab box. I've created a diagram that shows the 4 walls of the slab box from a bird's eye view. The green sides are parallel to one another as well as the purple. You're going to stagger the sides so you can see how one green side is up and the other one's pressed down. Same thing with the purple. So you stagger the sides. This one's tucked in, this one's sticking out, tucked in over here, sticking out over there. The dashed lines show where you're going to score and slip. This is similar to how you would fold the top of a box down if you wanted it to seal, the over-under method. So you're going to under, over each side. I'm going to start by stacking my sides up. So I'm going to set my first side as close to the edge as I can, leaving a little extra leeway. The next one I'm going to set inside. Make sure my edges are lined up. And I'm not scoring and slipping yet. I'm just setting them up so that I can see that it fits on my base. It may be helpful to have a friend help you out. So this side was tucked in. That means this side is going to stick out. So I'll set this new slab that I'm setting on tucked in. And when you get to the last wall, these two should not end at the same point. So this one's sticking out a little bit further, this one's in, which means the next wall will fit inside of the right and it will be sticking out on the edge. So if we look at this from a top view, it should look just like my model, and I'll show you that view in just a second. So now I'm going to mark each side that I need to score and slip. But to do that, I'm going to kind of gently peel the edges away and mark the sides that are touching with the line. So right here I'm marking the side of the slab there and here I'm marking the surface of the slab. So where they join up, one side should be marked on the surface, and one side should be marked right here on the thickness of the slab. And I'll do that all the way around the box so that I know where to score and slip. You don't want to have messy sides that are accidentally marked up with scoring. Okay, now I'll lay all my sides down. You can also mark where you need to score and slip on the base. I usually score and slip a little more on the base than I need to because I can blend that out later. And mark the side, the bottom that you're going to score and slip. Sometimes it's tough to tell which was the top and bottom. Or I just lay my sides out right next to the slab so I know where they're going to go. So I'm going to use a fork to score and slip all the sides that I've marked now. I won't make you watch all of that, and we'll come back in a second. Now that I've scored all of my sides, I'm ready to put them together. The walls are actually scored on the bottom, and then each side is scored. One on the side and one on the face. So I'm going to attach them with slip. You can put slip on whichever side you feel is driest. So for me, I'm going to put some slip on the base. And I'm just going to do two sides for right now. And then one where they're going to join. So I'm going to make sure my wall is nice and sturdy, straight up. I'm compressing it, so I'm holding the wall straight, pushing down with my hands to help it to stick to the base. And then I've rolled out some coils, and these are called reinforcement coils. I'm going to lay it along the base, using my left hand to support the outside edge so that the wall doesn't slide over. I'm going to press that coil in, and I actually want to set my next wall up too, because that coil is going to go into the side. So I'm going to do the same thing with my wall here, compress it down to the base, and you can see this wall that I just put up a second ago is standing on its own. I'm not only compressing this one to the base, I'm also compressing it towards the wall I set up earlier. So I'm pushing the wall together, using my left hand to support the wall that's already standing. And then I'm going to blend that reinforcement coil a little bit better using a wooden tool. So I can just pull that reinforcement coil, getting any air out. And if the coil's a little bit too thick, you can scrape some of that extra clay out. Make sure to really get into that corner. The seams are the easiest spot for the coils to break, or the walls to break apart. So I'm taking out that extra clay that I don't need and smoothing the reinforcement coil. I can go back later to smooth that out further. I'm also going to take a reinforcement coil and go up this seam right here where the sides of the wall meet. Again, just laying that coil in, making sure to support the outside. I'm actually using my fingers and thumbs, pinching that wall together so I keep a nice 90-degree angle in the corner. I'm going to take the excess of the coil off and use my wood tool again, pinching those sides so that it doesn't break apart, and smooth my coil out. I've smoothed out all of my coils on the inside. I'm going to flip to the outside edge and smooth this line right here, the seam. using a wooden tool. You want to do this while the clay is still soft so that it blends nicely. If there's a divot or a gap, you can use a small reinforcement coil on this side too. Try and keep a nice smooth corner, like so. I'm now going to join the remaining walls using scoring and slip. They've already been scored. Place some slip. And continue to join my walls in a staggered fashion. And I'll be back to show you how to cut down the extra on the outside. All right, now that I'm done with joining all 4 walls and smoothing out my reinforcement coils, remember you have reinforcement coils on each of the vertical corners and then along the base. I've also smoothed out all the corners on the outside so you cannot tell where my seams are. And now I'm going to cut down the base. To do that, I'm going to need a fettling knife, and I want to leave a little bit of extra so that I can blend the base up into the walls of the pot. So I'm going to cut just outside of the wall, pulling the fettling knife, leaving a little bit of extra clay so that I can blend that excess clay into the wall. That way the base looks like it's just a part of the wall. And I'm going to do that all the way around the box. Make sure that your knife isn't on an angle. If it's on an angle, you can end up with the base being a little bit too small for the walls of the box. If there's some extra, we can always sand it down later when it's at the bone dry stage. But right now we want to get it as close as we can, so I may go back in and cut some excess off. If you push it in a little bit too far, I can just reach in with my left hand on the inside and pop it back out. Sometimes I like to leave my left hand in there for support. And as I'm turning the box, I'm checking all the sides to make sure there aren't gaps that I missed. And there I've blended my base in pretty well. You might want to go back and check the corners. Sometimes the corners are a little difficult to get smoothed in. You can take 2 fingers and pinch them into a nice 90-degree angle. And then I can take a paddle or a ruler and tap up the edge of my box to make sure it's nice and level. Here's a paddle. To make sure all of my edges are squared off. You want to make sure that the clay is at a leather hard stage when you're paddling it. If it's too soft, it'll wobble. So there you have your basic 4-walled box. From here you can add clay to do some additive sculpture. You can cut away clay to do subtractive sculpture, or you can add texture to the box. But this is the basic 4-walled box. To create a lid for your box, you'll need another slab that's about the same size as your base. You're going to lay that slab down and flip the box up on top of it and trace it to the exact size. It should be the same size as the base. You want the slab to be leather hard so that it doesn't warp when it's sitting on top of the base. And here's an example of that. After you've designed your lid, you can create little brackets that will sit inside the base and prevent it from sliding around. And this is a good example of a box that has a lot of texture and some additive and subtractive details. It also has feet added onto the bottom.